Hello and welcome to another Sync webinar. My name is Jason Senamore, the Chief Product Officer here at Sync, and I'm delighted to be joined today by some seasoned IT executives to have a very open, candid discussion around the alignment between IT, information security, and the business. Joining me today, we have Shane Spingler, the SVP of Global IT at Hill International. Hi, Shane.
Hello.
We have Walt Carter, the Chief Digital Officer for Homestar Financial Corp. Hi, Walt. And we also have Neil Nicolaisen, the SVP and CIO for OC Tanner. So, folks, as mentioned, we are here to chat about the alignment of IT, information security in the business. Obviously, security now playing a role in this. In the past, we've had a lot of conversations about the alignment of IT and the business, but given the heightened role that security now plays in the day-to-day operations of every organization, important that we bring that third element into the discussion. I just want to start off nice and easy and really just kind of get an understanding from your own perspectives as to why there has been challenges between those departments in the past, and if you've actually experienced any of that yourself, whether in your current or previous role. So I'll start off with you, Shane. If you'd like to just first and foremost introduce yourself again and your role within the organization, and then, as I said, just give us a bit of an example as to why you think there might be challenges around this space in the first place.
Sure. My name is Shane Spingler. I'm the SVP for the Global IT organization for Hill International. We are approximately 27,000 professionals in about 60 offices worldwide. We provide program management, project management, construction management, and other consulting services to a wide variety of market sectors. And, I think this is a great topic, Jason. I think sometimes businesses really struggle with understanding how security fits in with technology. And in this day and age, I think it's even more important that we can align the three pillars together so that we can both protect the company and also provide technology solutions that will continue to propel them forward.
Fantastic, thank you. Neil, again, if you can just give a quick intro and then maybe talk about, some of the challenges you've seen in this area before.
Sure, Neil Nicolaisen, CIO at OC Tanner. We're an HR technology company based in Salt Lake City, Utah, with offices around the globe. And in my career, I've seen some areas of conflict that usually have to do with some people feel that information security creates barriers for them or restricting their activities, asking them to do things they wouldn't naturally do. On the other hand, sometimes you have people that are a little more zealous about it than they need to be. That maybe they are pretty narrowly focused on we must do this or else. And so that creates the opportunity for conflict or misalignment.
Fantastic. And last but by no means least, Walt, if you can just quickly introduce yourself and also give a little bit of an overview to set the tone.
Sure. So I'm Walt Carter. I'm the Chief Digital Officer and CIO at Homestar Financial Corp, headquartered in Gainesville, Georgia, which is just about an hour north of Atlanta. We operate in 22 states. We're a mortgage lender. And, over the course of my career, I've actually seen some pretty interesting challenges in this space. And I agree with both of the other panelists in that, a lot of times it's really about a risk perception and a values perception mismatch between, people that are practitioners in respective areas. If you've ever been part of a homeowners association where you have, a particular, individual in your neighborhood that we'll call the lawn Nazi, for lack of better expression, right? She's a checklist follower. She knows exactly what the covenants require for every home. And she's always on the alert for anybody that's got a grass situation that's, in her view, out of control, but maybe in the homeowner's view, hey, I was traveling and I didn't cut my grass the way I normally would. I'll get it as soon as I get home, right? And so, some folks, say, oh, no, that's a clear violation. No grace, no mercy for you. We're going to crack down, right? And I've seen that in my security practitioners as well. They go to a lot of trouble to get, certified as CISSPs, CISMs, and they know the rules and they're really locked into those rules. But I think what Neil said was really interesting, because a lot of times when you're in the marketplace, if there's no risk, there's no reward, right? Or the greater the risk, the more the reward, the less the risk, the lower the reward. So there's a spectrum there. And if you're a checklist follower, you're not really able to kind of dive into what those gray areas represent as potential value acquisition places for us as a business. And so sometimes you might take a risk with regard to your InfoSec practices in order to more expediently take advantage of an opportunity in the marketplace, or to more expediently deflect or meet a threat to your market share in the marketplace, right? And if all you can do is look at the rule book and say, no, your grass is too high, Walt, right? Then your business gets into these unnecessary conflict cycles that frankly just take the energy out of the room most of the time, right? So I think you've got to look at this from that risk perspective, reward perspective, values assessment, and go, look, what are we really trying to do here? I'm in business to make money, so I'm going to make it while I got the shot, right? And I'm going to do everything I can to protect the information, to protect my shareholders, to protect my stakeholders in the process set. But I can't be so bound by the covenant, if you will, that I don't take my shot.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Neil, I could see you nodding in agreement there. And what I wanted to kind of come to you and ask at this point is, so do you buy into some of the ideas you hear from people, or the notion that information security should remain independent from the technology or the IT teams in the business, and it remains independent to everything else? Obviously, based on what Walt's saying, that wouldn't necessarily be the case.
I'm going to give my best consulting answer. It depends. It depends. I've done it.
Good answer. Good answer.
I've done it both ways. I don't think it matters. I think it's more about, when I first got to OC Tanner a few years ago, we had a lot of changes to make in information security. And given my background, and like Walt said, I approach it from a perspective of a risk. Risk to me is all that matters, and that's a combination of likelihood and impact. And so we took that approach and kind of got rid of the lawn Nazis that had kind of hurt our reputation. And at that point, information security was part of my organization. As we matured and kind of took this approach of perspective risk across the entire organization, it became clear to us that we needed to move information security out of IT, just so we could broaden their horizon so they could assess risk across the entire organization. So I don't think it really matters structurally. What matters more is the philosophy, the approach, and the attitude.
Okay, and Shane, is that a similar situation that your organization, is security kind of been disconnected, or is there more involvement with the IT team?
No, it's been very connected. We don't really have a separation between IT and security. So, we've always had to wear many hats, myself especially, and we work, hand in hand with all of our business units to kind of really focus on how important security is to the company as a whole. So we need to, keep our strategies aligned. We have to be able to look at security, it's together as partners with, maybe our legal department, as well as making sure that our business units understand that, security both at the, software level, data, infrastructure, is really important, and it needs to be a big part of how we do business going forward. Hill right now hasn't really been, we're not mature enough, I think, to really kind of approach the separation of security with technology. But, we continue to try to educate them so they can understand, where we need to have some, more investment from our budget perspective, and how it's really safeguarding the future of the organization.
Right. And does that mean then that IT and security actively present and contribute to business planning meetings in the company?
We do, reluctantly sometimes, but that's definitely a bridge that we are building with the business units. And the more that we can show them how having us there early on in the discussions and the decision making, how valuable we can be, and how we can show them how it can prevent them from making bad decisions, making sure again that they're keeping our data, our personal identifiable information secure. They see the value and the fact that having us there before they make decisions and bringing us in at the 11th hour really is going to help them in the going forward.
Got you. Walt, why do you think IT and security are often viewed as roadblocks, and what can be done to try and remove that stigma, I suppose, from the business leaders within the organization?
Well, the key answer so far in my experience has been, I got to be thinking more like the business than the business is thinking, and then I have to be able to represent their viewpoint with a lot of confidence and have them agree that I'm representing their viewpoint before I introduce the risk elements of, and here's some things that we're going to have to mitigate as we move forward to accomplish your business goals. And I think those are hard sometimes, especially, for a lot of us that have been in IT for years and years and years and have never really been part of the business discussions as much. I think we always wanted to, but we were never really invited, that way. Now there's more of an emphasis on, particularly in the C-level roles, and I would say, anybody that's a VP or SVP or above in an IT organization, you're looked at now for more alignment and clarification than a pure practitioner of whatever your core skill set is. The soft skills are more and more important, which means, again, back to that risk values alignment. You've really got to be able to say, and let's put this risk in a context so that you can understand how much we might want to spend to mitigate against that risk, right? And that's I think the biggest challenge for a lot of us right now is just making sure that we stay in a language framework that they understand, and we don't go into the stack or the bits and the bytes and the parts because we'll lose them as soon as that happens. And it's interesting when you go. I think 12, 15 years ago, I actually gave a presentation to an ASACA group that I was very committed to the idea that security should be separate from IT. That the IT guy shouldn't be able to write his own report card on how well he was complying with the security practices and regulations, right? And for the last 10 years, I've had security reporting to me as a CIO, and now I'm going, I agree with what I think Neil said just a minute ago. It really doesn't matter that much. What matters more is your perspective or your philosophy about how do you protect your company. And so now I'm not so hard-headed as I was when I was a pure consultant, right?
Yeah, and if I could add one thing on this topic, I think it's important, and Walt touched on it and did a great explanation. What I found is we need to focus as not only leaders in IT, but all throughout IT on outcomes, not methods and tools. Oftentimes we're perceived as blockers because somebody says, I want to accomplish this. And then we focus on methods and say, the only way to accomplish that is to do it my way. As long as you achieve the outcome, I don't care how. The how becomes irrelevant in the face of outcomes. But sometimes in IT, we're so focused on the methods, on the tools, on the technology that we lose sight of the outcome. And we really are in an environment now where we need to exert influence across the entire organization on how it thinks, how it acts, and also to a certain extent help or influence the organization's definition of what its outcomes could or should be.
Got you. So on that note, then, I mean, do the projects on your roadmap, your technology roadmap, map to the business goals, or do you have a written copy of the current year's business goals? And is that where you're trying to kind of make the alignment on your side and prevent, I suppose, that
When I first got to OC Canada, the business did a really good job of defining their goals and then cascading those to IT. And what we decided in sort of helping influence the transformation of the organization from a manufacturing company to a software company, we decided that what we would do is inform those annual business objectives. So we do our IT planning and prepare our plan and then bring those to the established business planning process and cycles so that we have an early voice and a pretty strong voice in here's what we think the opportunities are that we should be pursuing as an organization. And that's worked well. But I will say this, in order to have some level of influence, we also had to first stop sucking, meaning we had to get really good at delivery, because one of my mottos is the organization is not going to trust us with strategy if we're the gang that can't shoot straight.
makes perfect sense, of course.
Yeah, I would agree as well. Can I jump in real quick? I think that, it's really important that, as Neil said, we don't suck. And I always try to enforce that with, my staff, that, we really kind of make sure that our house is in line and that we are doing things the right way, the most effective, efficient, and with quality. And we show them the value that, IT brings to the organization. And I really think that if we can do that, we complement their strategic goals. And like Neil also stated, we come prepared when we get into those business meetings, and we say, okay, here's how our IT strategic roadmaps align with yours. And we want to partner with you. We want to be able to explain to you why the technology is going to benefit you and how it's going to help the organization from a revenue stream. And, really, not be perceived as those roadblockers and be their partners. And that's really what we try.
Well, that's where the importance of forming the relationship comes into play, right? I mean, how important is that relationship building and maintenance between the security team, the IT team, whether they're already intertwined or they're kept separate? I mean, how important are those kind of united fronts when dealing with the business in order to achieve your goals?
I think it's something that we're really trying to improve upon. And having those relationships with our business is really kind of a top priority, I know, for me. And I think education is really important, because I think sometimes our organization just doesn't understand, how, security and technology really is the base foundation of them being successful. So the more that we can continue to be transparent with them, and really, like I said, educate them around the value, I think that's really how we build those building blocks with the business and, become better partners with them.
Okay, fantastic. Neil, you've spoken about risk, obviously, within this conversation now. So I suppose, what are the most impactful ways you've seen that exemplifies the ideal alignment between technology, information security in the business, and obviously the role that risk plays within that?
Yeah, the way we've approached it is like you've talked about, from a perspective of risk. And for us, risk comes in two ways. There's a likelihood and there's an impact. And so what we did that really helped build the bond among IT business and information security was identify the risks that are present in our business, and it's very personal to every business. Then look at the likelihood of impact of those risks, what we were doing to mitigate those risks, and what we should be doing to mitigate those risks. Then we were really honest with ourselves and said, are there areas where we are either over-engineering or under-engineering our approach to risk mitigation? And then how do we keep current as the threats and the risks change? And let's work together, because the mitigation to the risk, the likelihood or the impact, may not necessarily be a technology. It might be a business process change. There are things we can do beyond tools and technologies to change the risk profile. And so that's created this framework that we come back to on a regular basis as not only our business practices change, the technologies change, but the risks change, and has created a really good collaboration among the three groups.
Fantastic. Walt, same question. I mean, what other examples outside of potentially, within your own organization, have you seen that kind of really highlight and showcase that ideal alignment between those three departments?
Well, what comes to mind is, I recently had my security team sit down with our risk committee and go through what was essentially a scripted television show type of approach to presenting risk. We had raised an issue of, some of our sales team had gone out and created some rogue websites that were outside of our domain and outside of our control, but they were using essentially our brand in order to offer services in the marketplace. And we said, we need to shut that down. And the answer was, well, how urgent is that, right? That was the real question. And it was a legitimate business question, right? Do we really want to over-engineer a solution here, or do we just let this ride? And I think, what we did was then we came back to the risk committee with, essentially some segments, if you will, with pauses for commercials. And the notion was, let me go out to one of those websites and show you how easy it is to hack that website and deface it first. Second, to drop some malware onto that website that could easily come across through some of our lead acquisition strategies, right? And then thirdly, and I have a certified ethical hacker on my team that I pay good money to go and do these kinds of things, and she was able to show segment after segment, here's how easy it is and how inexpensive it is to go download these tools and instructions on how to use them to do exactly these steps. We videotaped a lot of the demo so that she didn't have the security or IT demo risk going on while we were going through that, and to kind of make it more expedient, right? Because a lot of those steps take a little longer than 15-minute intervals. So we just kind of mocked it up, demonstrated, but I also had her clone the website. I didn't actually deface anybody's website or drop malware on anybody's website. It's not mine, it's outside my domain. But it's pretty easy to clone the website and demonstrate on a real live, right, on a real live demo. Here's how easy it is for the bad guys to take advantage of this kind of stuff. And just FYI, these were WordPress sites, which have all kind of open doors almost all the time. And so, at any rate, the goal was, I think, to your question, how do you make it real? How do you manage that risk? And again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. You have to contextualize it. You have to make it real inside your story, right? And so here's our story. Here's what's going on, and here's how easy it is for bad guys to take advantage of that with what is essentially free tools. And so the outcome of that was excellent for us, by the way, because we were able to make our point, get the leverage that we needed to close down and offer alternatives to those guys that were approved within our domain for us to manage more carefully. And it also allowed us to buy some additional tools to further mitigate additional risks that we highlighted in that same session. But in 45 minutes, we contextualized the risk, we made it real. We also offered solutions that were fairly low cost. And again, that's how we do it. That's a good alignment, right? And it satisfies the business goals, right? Which is kind of at the top of the chart here, right? I want to protect my brand. I want to protect our ability to do our work in the marketplace. I want to be recognized as a secure place to transact. And so, again, just that alignment and the reality mix and the contextualization, I think they're all kind of perfectly in line with what Neil was sharing just a minute ago. This is how you do it. This is real world stuff.
Definitely, thank you. That's some extremely valuable insight there. I want to close out with really trying to get some advice from you guys to your peer groups, okay? On a couple of areas. Shane, I'll come to you first. I mean, what advice would you give to your fellow IT leaders who seem to be having difficulties in this space with either security and the business, or one or the other, or both together?
Well, I think my recommendation would be, and this is based off of my experience, especially with Hill, because for such a large organization, we really have we're very low on the maturity scale, I guess. And I kind of have to approach it at a very basic level. And we focus on knowledge sharing, collaboration, and communication. And if you're, in a similar situation with your company, I think those are like three very easy things to really start engaging with your business lines on, knowledge, explaining to them, making them understand that, IT and security is more than just your laptop, your monitor, your keyboard. I mean, and your phone. There's a lot of things that go on in the background that are, the backbone of the infrastructure that nobody sees or hears about unless something happens. As far as collaboration, asking them to be part of some of the technology improvements that you are trying to implement, and have them engaged with testing, asking for their opinion. How does this affect your day to day? And really absorbing that feedback and using that feedback to kind of make improvements upon what you're trying to really put out there for them for their benefit. And then communication, just be transparent and explain to them, these are the things that we're doing from an IT and security perspective that is going to help you get your job done in a more safe, effective, and efficient way. And, here's how we're going to help you do your job. And, not just kind of sit back, either behind the scenes or on our ivory tower as some think, and really let them know that, we are true partners with them. And I think if you can kind of work on those three things with your company, you're really going to open a lot of doors as far as being accepted as valuable partners to your business. And they're going to want to engage you from the beginning and really have you side by side with them along the way.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Neil, flipping it over a little bit, what advice would you give to CEOs, CFOs, the business leaders on how to start working better with their IT and security leaders?
It's a really interesting question. I think one of the things they have to do is think about it from a long-term continuous improvement cycle, meaning wherever we are today, we're going to get better. We're going to get better incrementally. Talk to your IT leaders and talk to them about a framework as a baseline. Start with the SOC 2 guidelines, COVID, NIST, whatever, and just do a self-evaluation and say, let's be honest with ourselves. Where are we in terms of just best practices? And let's also do some level of risk analysis. And let's pick this year one or two things we're going to get better at. And then from that, because it's overwhelming, it's daunting if you're starting from scratch. But let's just pick a couple of areas where we're going to reduce our risk, and we're going to do it in a best practices way. And the frameworks, to me, define the best practices. I don't need to figure this out. Somebody's already figured it out. I just need to evaluate myself against that and move forward.
Fantastic, thanks. And Walt, I'm going to close with you. Ultimately, what do organizations and IT leaders really risk? I suppose a big thing here has been risk, but what do they risk by not creating a strong alignment between these three departments?
Well, I think, Shane and Neil have called it out several times in the course of the conversation. If you're not open to partnering and really helping the business accomplish its goals, you won't get an opportunity to accomplish yours. I think you lose credibility fairly quickly. And if you do create that environment where they feel like, either from an IT perspective, we're saying, no, you can't really do that without spending, millions and millions of dollars and lots of time, or from a security perspective that, that risk is just too much, right? We can't take that on. We're not going to sign off on that. If you become Dr. No, in either scenario, I think you wind up creating first what they'll do is they'll go around you, right? They'll figure out that, well, the IT guy is not going to say yes, or the security guy is not going to say yes. So they'll go figure out how to get it done without you, right? And so if you're not available and you're not transparent, I think is the word, Shane, you've used a couple of times, and if you're not credible, I think that's the other part of this is you gotta be able to back your stuff up and be the champion of truth. Or maybe a different way to say it is, I'm just a pragmatic, reality-based person. I'm trying to help keep us in reality here, right? So let's don't get off into boy, if everything went perfectly, because no project ever does, and there's no risk that you can 100% mitigate and still take, right? And so what can we do, right? And that's really what you got to keep driving to, is what can we do? What actually can we do? But I think the people that say no create their own problems, and ultimately they get excluded from the opportunity to participate in the solution.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, thank you all very, very much for that. There's some amazing insight there. And I thank you all for taking the time to provide that to your peers across the country. Lovely spending the afternoon with you in your homes as we all get used to the new normal here. But yeah, thank you so much. Really insightful conversation, aligning IT, InfoSec, and the business, something that many IT and security and business leaders will be tackling for many years to come, I'm sure. But really appreciate your insights today, all extremely valuable. For those of you who are interested in exploring more of these webinars with Sync, feel free to check out our webinars page and other digital assets in the form of benchmark reports. Until the next one, thank you all very much, and we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was a real pleasure working with you today.